Hey guys, welcome back to the Prices. Once again, this is your host, Gamer. And I know I've been very inactive on the channel for like a good while. Well, basically, if I had to sum it up, I had like basically no drive to want to create any YouTube videos these past few months because knowing that how most of my content was going on my other channel, I couldn't get it back. I didn't have the space on my laptop to back it up, because I got this new Ace laptop long after my channel was gone. Yeah. So if I was able to get it before, I would have been able to back up all my videos, but no, I wasn't. Right, so I just have to accept the fact that all that good content, years of videos and everything is gone, and just have to move on with now. Right, and what do we have now? Well, basically today's video, and before I get into today's video, I'm going to sum up the changes I'm going to be doing to my content. I'm still going to be doing like gaming videos, right? Because I don't want to give up on doing that, but I'm going to focus more on movie reviews and reaction. But I'm going to keep the reactions limited, so it's going to be more movies, right? All that set aside, today's video I'm going to be dedicated to a very interesting topic, one that strikes a very strong chord in the DC fan base, and that is Man of Steel, right? The Superman movie, like the beginning of the DCEU, right? So, um, well, this film is basically more than 5 years old at this point, right? It's an old ass film. Okay, so in today's video, I'm just going to talk about Man of Steel, like the movie, how it was when I saw it, and how my perspective on the film changed since it came out to now, right? Because I don't really see a lot of people talking about it that much. When you look on YouTube, most of them is like, oh, the DCU feel, and some of them they mention Man of Steel. They talk about the film, but it's always about the character and how this deconstructing thing and how it is in BVS and all the other movies. And well, I do want to do BVS a video on that film. I'll save that for another video, right? So I was gonna focus this on Man of Steel alone, because since BVS is such a bigger topic in itself, and there's a lot more stuff I want to talk about that. But right, all like I said, Man of Steel, right? So first of all, full transparency, I have to say it's a good movie. I enjoyed it the first time I saw it. I didn't really have much problems with the film, other than the fact that it felt a bit uneven in the pacing. I kind of felt like a little bit of a feeling watching the film, like recently now, years later, right, revisiting the film, and like you tend to realize like certain stuff in the film that you haven't realized, like when you first saw it when it came out. And one of those instances was like certain scenes that you pick up something and you're like, oh, that, and then you realize, oh, and like those little things that make the film much more appreciative in a sense, because like a lot of that you don't see in films nowadays. When you revisit them, you just like, oh yeah, I remember that, or yeah, that scene, but there's not like nothing that you can pick up from the film. And another thing too, like that's one of the things that I come to like rewatching Man of Steel recently. There's certain little like maybe Easter eggs and stuff that I never like made out like the first 2 3 times you saw the film, but like you visited it years later as you're older, and you like you tend to like analyze films or see films from a different perspective now. It's really interesting that you see things that you don't normally see. And Man of Steel, like this film, It's Superman and the characters, and the city and where they were in. You see these things, and I haven't really had much of that in any of the recent films. So far, the only times I experienced this is watching the Dark Knight trilogy as a whole. It's really interesting thinking about it, and I remember because at first I didn't think there was anything much wrong with the film, right? Right, like how I said, for me it was just mostly the pacing of it. It felt uneven, right? So I thought that was the issue. But reading the reviews, and this is a while after the film came out. I decided, start looking at reviews. I realized that it was very mixed, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, there was so much destruction, and there was so much darkness, and Superman was like so grim and all this other stuff." People they kind of exaggerated all this stuff about the film to the point where it was really. I mean, are you talking about the same film? Do you see the same film? I mean, that's what I'm thinking because there were several instances where he was smiling, because that's apparently one of the big concerns people have, that he didn't smile enough. I mean, I saw him smile several times, and I remember the scene specifically too. So it's not like that's a big deal. Another thing too is that yes, the film does have a sort of serious tone or darker tone, and it's not as maybe as campy-ish or light-hearted as the old Superman films, but that's kind of the point for this film, because after all, it's an origin story, and if you read the comics, Superman's origin story isn't necessarily as light-hearted and as campy as they make it out in the movie, and that's the whole point of this Man of Steel, the origin story being more faithful to the comic. And I sit there and I thinking shouldn't more people have understand this, since Superman is like an older character, and then apparently they don't, and the reason for it is older films. Apparently nowadays the films define a comic book character more than the actual comics itself, and I find that very strange, because I've read some of the Superman comics in the past, and straight up there were word for word dialogue that was pulled out of Superman comics and was put in the movie. And I noticed that, I only noticed it recently. I've seen some people post on Reddit. I know they made a comparison. They showed you pictures of the comic, and then they show you side by side with a picture of the scene in the movie where they had the same dialogue, and I was like, wow, that's interesting. But apparently no, that's not the Superman. I mean, first of all, it is. I mean, yeah, sure, I get it. Just because it's in the comic doesn't mean it's going to be good or whatever, but it's still the character. I've had this is a big problem that I've had with watching some of the other movies more recently as of late, is that as they progress and they make sequels, they tend to push to this narrative of changing the characters into something that they're not, just for the sake of continuing the story, but to make it more popular, rather than just sticking to the actual stuff for the character. I mean, to put it in a way, to give an example, I don't know if you guys have remembered Incredible Hulk, right? That was a film that I really enjoyed. I mean, unfortunately, I didn't get to see it in the theaters because we went to watch Dark Knight that time. Batman is more thing than Hulk, but I got the Incredible Hulk on DVD and I watched it, and it was a pretty damn good movie. And yes, I know it wasn't fun as the other Marvel movies. Right? It's more serious. It has more depth, and it's more dramatic. focused on Bruce Banner and such. It was still pretty good. I think it balanced itself well enough in my opinion. Maybe not in terms of the pacing, but overall the story and its arcs and whatever. When Avengers came out, after Incredible Hulk, you had Edward Norton. They had to change the actors to Mark Ruffalo. So for Avengers, they had a completely different Hulk, and I liked the Hulk in the Avengers. He was still pretty cool. Mark Ruffalo did his own take on the character, and his version of Bruce Banner, which I still liked. Later on in the franchise, they pretty much turned Hulk into a joke. If you look at him now, there's barely much of Hulk. I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, he talks more, and he's more interactive. Like if you watch Thor Ragnarok, so I mean that's a cool thing to see. But they made him to a joke to the point where he doesn't even measure up to the current Marvel heroes. And I think that's pretty disappointing because the Hulk we got in Incredible Hulk was pretty damn good. And looking back, I'll take that over the current Hulk any day if we had a chance. And that says a lot, especially when you look at the MC, how they've come so far since then. And that same thing that is a part that I've noticed with the characters in those films, and I've noticed that happen in the DCU, but that's one thing that I've also noticed happening. And I watched how Henry Cavill plays Superman. I didn't really notice much of that because when I saw the film, I saw a story taking place that was building up to something else, that was continued off with something else, and it was going pretty good. And that's one thing that I like, with his role, him playing the character. He did what he could have done with what he had, and he did very well. Especially when you look at the scenes where he's interacting with his parents, one on one with Jonathan Kent, and when he was alone talking to Martha Kent. Those are some really good moments that he had, and you saw it in the way they interacted. There was some pretty good stuff that they had there, and you don't see scenes like that in movies much nowadays. I mean, you barely see it. Where there's subtle. There's not much music playing. Right? There's just them sitting down talking to each other. No special effects, right? Just the two characters interacting with each other, talking about stuff, and it's subtle scenes like that that help to actually make a character relatable. Not how much jokes he can make or how fun he can be or how well you can tie him into this or that, but those little stuff that you can put in little moments with the characters interacting. There's also another aspect that I want to address in the film, and that is the admitting that it's not perfect. And I know that sounds weird because like how the film, Superman is like this perfect character, right? But like the way how this film set up, how it's constructed, and how it plays out, right? You watch it unfolding and you hear like the dialogue and you listen to it. Like you listen to what some of the scenes where his biological father, Joel, what he says to Kyle. He says to him, this is before he finds out that his, past, and you see him puts on the suit for the first time. You hear the quote from Joel. He says, "You will give the people of Earth an ideal to strive towards. They will race behind you, they will stumble, they will fall, but in time they will join you in the sun. Kyle, in time you will help them accomplish wonders." And that, I couldn't help but think, but that pretty much sums up the people watching the film as well. like this film admits that, and like some of the words here, especially this other one, people are afraid of what they don't understand. In BVS they can't change up that one a little bit, and there's others from this other character says he'll be an outcast, they'll kill him, and all these other cool quotes he have, and when you read the dialogue, it pretty much does play into what people who watching the film would react to. They say they hate it, and they bring up all these weird reasons. Most of it, the people who are just trying to find something to complain about for the sake of find something to complain about, and others are people who they try to make a legit, reason to why the movie sucks. But in reality, their obsession with the older films, and the thing with this one, no concern how this one is a origin story that's different in the sense of how it's constructed, how it's made, the story that's been told, and people they can't really get over these things. And I think that's the best thing that they can do in this film. Like, it's not going to be perfect. There's going to be like certain things about the film that, not going to be thing right. But at the same time, it's not even like striving for that perfection, because you admit that you're not perfect. You're striving to be the best version of what you're making, and I think that's what Man of Steel is. If I had to sum it up, in my opinion, Man of Steel is the best version of a Superman comics based Superman story, being told from the origin. And I'll take that any day compared to the stuff that we see nowadays. Films nowadays, they come out, you have a nice time in the theater, you like it or you hate it, you read the reviews, whatever, and a few months later you don't even talk about it. It's just forgotten at the back of your mind, or it's something lost on the collecting dust on the shelves in your room. But like with Man of Steel, it's like one of those rare movies where you can revisit and you can still have that feeling like you're watching the film like that first or second time watching the film. You still get that feeling, but you don't really get it with films nowadays, and I think that's a big thing they accomplished with this film from my perspective. So if I were to sum it up for Man of Steel Revisited, it was a good film, and looking back, I don't think it could have been any better, because it's basically the best version of that it can be, and that is being the best Superman comics movie. And sure, it's not as perfect as the 80s Superman with Christopher Reeves, and that's fine, because this is Man of Steel, right? You gotta at least acknowledge that this is not the Superman, it's Man of Steel, and it's a pretty good film, and I'd probably have no problem recommending it to someone else if they'll be looking for this film to watch, right? So, but anyways, guys, this is just mostly me rambling about the film. I pretty much went a bit in off direction, so I'll just basically decide to like talk about the film. I mean, I haven't been on YouTube in like months, and I know it sounds pretty weird to come back with just this video, but it was something that was on my mind for quite some time, and I wanted to talk about it, unscripted, just me giving my thoughts, my perspective about it, looking at what I've seen. So yeah, and well, let me know what you guys think about the film. Have your thoughts changed about over the years? Did you like it, or did you hate it, or are you in between, or maybe you've changed, maybe you've come around? I've noticed that happen with films as of late. Let me know what you think and comment section down below, and I guess I'll see you guys in the next video.